Gayleen, I just thought I'd swing by your office. How you doing?
It's great to see you. Thank you for swinging by. I love this serendipitous interaction. Perfect. Perfect. So it's really lovely to see you today. You're wearing green, I'm wearing red, so we're bright and ready for spring, it looks like. I'm wondering if you could just remind me who you are and what your role is on campus, please, Denver.
Oh, for sure. As you said, I'm Denver Della-Vedova. I'm the MSU president. It's weird not saying president-elect anymore. Um, only a week and a half in, but here I am. I'm represent the MSU and all our students, and I'm the chief spokesperson for us as well with any of our advocacy statements, etc. And yeah, that's a little bit about me.
That's a lot. You've said a lot just in those few words. So congratulations. We've had the opportunity to meet before, of course, and mostly when you were president-elect, which is great. And it's nice to know that you've officially moved into your position. And it's always an honor to talk to a president. So I feel really, really thrilled to be able to have this conversation with you today. I think for many people, although we are aware that we have a student union and we are aware that we have a president-elect and president and a whole executive around that, I'm guessing that some people are not as clued in on all of the components that go with your office and the organizational structure that you're in. So I'm wondering if you just want to riff off a little bit of, you're probably having these conversations with lots of people, but just tell us a little bit about the MSU and how you are supported by people around you, et cetera. So whatever you want to tell me, I'm interested in hearing, and then I'll hit you up with some, I'm sure, questions as a result of that.
Well, here I am right here as part of our board of directors. So our board of directors is the president, a VP finance, a VP ed, and a VP admin. I know it looks like me and the VP finance don't do a lot, but I promise we do. VP finance handles beyond just a VP finance, any sort of financial decisions that are over, I think, $150 come through them, and then still even a lot of those come by them in different ways. Our VP education handles all of our advocacy work. So they have an AVP of university affairs, municipal affairs, and provincial and federal affairs, as well as an ed and advocacy department. Right now, we actually don't have a VP ed, but we're holding elections this weekend. So I've been filling in for that spot. We also have our VP admin. So VP finance is also Jaya Chandran. JJ is our VP finance right now, and our VP admin is Christina Deverpolli. Our VP admin handles internal governance AVP, which handles a lot of our policy work. We have our AVP services, which handles all our services. And then below, we have our peer support and student life enhancement services split up. As well, we all oversee our general manager, John, and our business units departments in our central support services. VP admin has a slightly more direct role in VP finance as well in those, where myself and VP ed get to do some of the more fun advocacy work. But yeah, that's essentially the breakdown. Our governance structure actually also goes the other way a little bit beyond this diagram, where as a group, we all report to, or the three VPs report to the SRA, and I report to the student body. And we are also members of the SRA, which is 35 members of 31 students, excluding the 4 board positions. And yeah, and then the SRA reports to the student body. So that's the full breakdown of the MSU.
Wow. You know, I learned a whole lot just in that, because I don't think I've actually ever gone to look at your org structure. So that's fascinating and extremely helpful. Thank you for sharing that.
It just got posted 2 weeks ago, actually. So
oh, it's great. It's
yeah.
Learning. You know, I mean, I've met with a number of people over the years, and I've only been here for 4 years, but through those 4 years, I have interacted with members of the MSU. And yeah, quite honestly, never really knew there's quite a lot of people involved in making your student government run, which is pretty exciting. And I'm curious for you. So you've just gone through that. So this has been learning for you as well, I'm guessing, because we all learn our org structures when we end up in them. So tell me a little bit about that, but maybe even before that, Denver, why did you want to become the president of the MSU? It seems like an awful lot of work. So what was it about this that intrigued you?
So it's funny you mentioned coming into an org structure and learning about it, because I've had the benefit of every student is part of the MSU and part of our org, actually at the top level, right? But with that, I also was on first year council as the Brandon Hall chair representative, as well as I've been on SRA for 2 terms, which is our student representative assembly. And I kind of knew actually probably in first year, I had some conversations with Chuki, was president at the time, and he showed up first year council, and I just saw everything that the MSU contributes to students and all the good it does. And I kind of decided then I wanted to do it. And then it took up until this year before I actually decided to run, just because I didn't really want to split up my academic career. And I figured it would be better to do post-graduation, just have it, everything out of the way, so I'm not worried about that end. I'm personally myself big on advocacy, especially physical advocacy. I've worked the last 6 summers for a charity called Strive Learning Center, which works with children with cerebral palsy. So I've always had a bit of a soft spot for advocacy and trying to help folks, as well as I've always been involved in student politics since I think grade 9, which it's weird to say at this point. Like, when I mentioned, references back for folks, and I'm going, yeah, like grade 9, people like when you were 14, yeah, like 8 years ago. Right? But
that's great though. That's great. So it's in your blood, which is interesting. It seems to be something that you've really taken on as I want to call it a calling, but there's obviously some values based in that. You talked about the advocacy piece, and I'm curious if you were influenced by family or a teacher or teachers, or what was it, do you think, that originally initiated your interest in this helping others?
It's funny that you mentioned that, because there's a number of things. Like I was a part of the gifted program through public and high school, and I had a lot of great teachers through that. I'd say definitely my parents are the biggest influence, though, just being, my parents were very much, if you have an issue, speak up, like tell somebody, figure it out, right? And they've just always been that way, do what's right rather than what's easy. But at the same time, I know they've said I'm one of 4 boys, and they've mentioned a number of times that I was a little different, at like 4 or 5 years old. I can't remember what it was, but there was some sort of discussion that was a little heated between my parents, and I walked in as just a kid, right? Like a little kid. And I went, well, why don't we talk it through? Like, what's got you upset? What? And my parents both stopped dead, and they went, like, they still are shocked. They're like, none of the other boys did that, right? Where you just like, walked in and tried to solve an argument, right? Like,
That's great.
So I think it's something that I've just kind of always naturally had a little bit, but it's always a funny one, because it's weird for a kid to get involved in, adults talk and no kids are interested, right? Typically.
Well, I think it says that you have courage and bravery embedded in you as well, because I think a lot of really young children probably wouldn't feel that they had the opportunity, or perhaps you just really didn't understand some of the ramifications of getting something. I don't know. So there could be either side of that. Have you thought about that in terms of your strengths? What sort of strengths you bring into your leadership role? You've had a variety of different leadership roles, as you've talked about over the last 8 years. What are some of your core strengths or values that you think you bring forward?
I just like to touch on that too. I think it's funny. Part of that too is I've always grown up in a household where I can discuss anything, which I think has really helped. But core strengths and values, I would say probably communication. Just as an offshoot of that, I'm a big advocate of talking things through, even if it comes to the point of, beat a dead horse a little bit. It's important to do your due diligence where you can. Say I'm fairly empathetic. Don't like to boast, but I've always found it fairly easy to try and consider somebody else's perspective on things, as well as I've always been the therapist friend in any social circles. If anybody needs just somebody to help put things in perspective, or figure out what they should do next, which is hard to put into a trait or strength, but I guess some of those interpersonal communications and just discussion I've always enjoyed. Fixing problems, honestly, problem solving. There's something you could put on a resume.
Yeah, it is. It's great. But I think the world is shifting around expectations of leadership and management specifically. In fact, in the last week, I have been participating in some opportunities to learn about the new working model, hybrid working, and one of the new theories and or opportunities is to talk about empathy-based management and empathy-based leadership and the importance of that. I think we've learned a lot about that through the pandemic, just that whole be kind, have empathy, and support others. That skill set or that leaning or default approach to things will probably serve you very well. It's very timely as well. And I'm wondering, have you seen ways already where you've had to lean into empathy in the work that you're doing, Denver? Because you do have a lot of people in your role that you have to support and be considerate of as you're making decisions. So I'm curious, I know it's early days as the president.
Yeah.
President-elect gets you a lot of exposure in that way as well over the last couple of months. So any thoughts about that?
You know, that's a great one. I would say the biggest thing with some of that empathy-based like thinking and bringing that forward isn't in doing, you know, recognizing people are having a hard time, so giving everybody double their salary for the year, right? As much as we'd all love that, oh, it was a hard year, here's double, right? I think it's more so in recognizing it in the way you speak, looking into the things that people bring to you, and like from a leadership perspective, trying to really address what the things they need help with are, and taking that little extra bit of effort to put yourself in their position, right? Which really at its core is what empathy is. I would say that's the biggest part that I've tried to do so far. And it's hard because I try and carry it through every decision, right? Like it's not one part of any decision, or of any specific decision, it's a part of every decision. And then the outcome had empathy all throughout it, right?
That's great.
Sorry, I'm also long-winded, so.
No, not at all.
I apologize.
This is now not at all. I love to talk too. I think it's great. And I think I really appreciate how you've presented that. So thank you for that. So I'm going to switch gears a little bit. I'm curious for you, you've got a year of this activity ahead of you. And I know you had, I'm sure, lots of time to talk to Giancarlo, who's the previous MSU. Have you connected with other past presidents as well? I don't know what kind of mentorship or teaching or learning or opportunities there are to talk to people about what worked well, what lessons to learn from. Talk a little bit about how do you get started into this role? I think it's really fascinating to think it's like a massive amount of work and effort and time commitment. So what's helped you so far to get on your terra firma?
I would say to some degree, like having past experience in the MSU has helped with a lot of the inner workings. Like I've been on, you know, committees like internal governance. So I have an idea there of how our policy works, how our policy changes work, being on SRA. But at the same time, our VPs so far had very minimal MSU experience, and they're doing great themselves. So I don't know if I can lean on that. I would say like the transition period, I tried to shoot for about 8 to 10 hours a week from January when I found out that I had gotten the position. So a lot of hours spent that way. We do have about a week's transition period on the week before, as well as typically support from past presidents, like moving forward. I haven't reached out too much to folks outside of Giancarlo, but I know when Josh was the president, we spoke, and I also spoke to Chuki a fair bit. So I've had some of that and gotten more of the wisdom, and then I think in the short term, I've gotten a lot of the wisdom, but as well insight on what the current status of the MSU and the university is. from Giancarlo this year.
Yeah, you mentioned Chuki. So I arrived on campus when Chuki was president, and I had a lot of interactions with Chuki. Chuki had made one of his presidential pillars. I don't know if that's the terminology that you use, but that's the one I'm going to use right now.
Yeah.
That's around technology. So we had a number of different conversations about that. I'm curious for you, what were the key things that you thought, these are the areas I really want to focus on this year?
So I tried to keep it plain and simple. I went with the ABCs. So accessibility, bettering advocacy through education, equality, and equity, and community togetherness and support. So ABC, nice, clean, simple. I don't know if you noticed that I went accessibility, advocacy, and then had to put bettering advocacy because the B didn't fit. But those are my main ones. And accessibility has included a lot of things from like online accessibility, financial accessibility. How do we target some things on campus that folks don't necessarily think of, but many folks struggle with, right? As well as physical accessibility. I know I previously mentioned is a close part of my heart. Advocacy work, a lot of that I actually didn't know as much coming into the role as I've learned in the last few months, but I've learned a lot. And I'm actually currently right now running for a spot on UCrew as a chair.
I don't know what that is, sorry.
So it's I'm gonna forget I'm not gonna attempt what
Okay.
UCrew stands for,
Yep.
but it's a federal advocacy body for schools.
Oh.
Yeah. I believe it's the University Coalition R Association, I think. But yeah, I'm not great with names. That's my one major downfall in this role.
No worries. Do you have a nickname then? Or a short form? Do people call you DDB or anything like that? No.
I just go by Denver. When I was a kid, my dad called me Denny, but my mom hated it because it sounded like Dennis.
Okay.
So that was the extent that
stuck with Denver.
Yeah.
That's great. So that's something else that you would take on, representing not just this institution, but from a national platform, that UCR, is that what that would be about?
Yeah, so UCR's actually made a lot of developments in the last few years. I believe the terms of reference were written last year, but it's just going to give us a national level of advocacy, like we have USA for our provincial advocacy. It's just the next logical extension for a lot of schools, I believe. Also, I realized I got off the question. I wanted to touch on community togetherness and support.
Please, yeah.
Awesome. Sorry, I get distracted. Tangents, easy.
I probably did that. It's okay. Go.
No. Yeah, community togetherness and support actually is probably the big one on my platform. And it's also probably the hardest to manage because a lot of it surrounds mental health. What does our reintroduction to campus look like? What things are we going to need to overcome this year coming out of a pandemic, hopefully, fingers crossed, but should be, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how do we tackle that? And how do we make sure that MAC has that same friendly, positive culture that, when I went there, it had moving forward? And how can we shape that and improve it even, right? Mm-hmm. Like right now we're in a spot that half of our undergrads have never been on campus, right? Like that's a huge opportunity to shape culture, shape access to resources, and all of that moving forward, and really a fresh start for the MSU as leadership and how we engage with students, right?
Those are very interesting goals and very, I think they have a huge potential for output, and they, to your point, I don't want to say they're lofty because I don't think they're lofty. I think they're big. Those are big goals. Any thoughts on how you might move that forward?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's a lot of it, Rome wasn't built in a day. Like I have some goals that I've already spoken with our board and said, this isn't going to happen this year, but we're going to lay the groundwork, right? I have certain goals that I want to achieve this by the end of the summer because I want to ensure that we have it for students as they come to campus. some of them are going to be through the year. It's just the nature of things. And some of them I'm sure we might not, we hope to do, and there's a lot more challenges, and some of them are going to be easier than we thought and just get done. So I think that falls kind of a goal by goal basis. And overall, some of those more overarching goals that I've tried to set, I think are more long-term. Like I'll pave the way for a lot of things culture-wise, but it's going to be on the next board of directors, the next MSU, and the university, GSA, like all our partners on how that continues and is shaped in the future, right? Faculty societies too, can't forget them.
Good for you. I think that's great. We call those BHAGs, big, hairy, audacious goals. We want to make we have something really far out there that we strive towards. It keeps people very focused. It's aspirational. Everybody likes to have a little aspirational and some goals that feel like they're stretching. They're stretch goals, which is great. I see a guitar in your background. I'm sure people have asked you about this, and a whole lot of equipment that goes with that guitar. So talk to me a little bit about, again, changing topics, but your creative outlets. Is this part, are you a creative person? Do you write your own music, or do you just play others' music? Tell us about that.
Funny you mentioned that. First, I want to pick up on the background. I apologize. I moved back to the parents' house 2 weeks ago. Nice. For the summer. And then they moved me from the childhood bedroom to the loft. So I had some office space, but I haven't figured out how to make the background nice. And I don't have, my computer won't do backgrounds on Zoom.
Yeah, no, I love the background. I think it's fun. This tells a little bit about who you are, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Thanks. With that too, I play guitar. I play a little bit of bass, a little bit of drums, a little bit of ukulele, a little bit of banjo, anything with strings, honestly. I been playing since I was about 14, so about 8 years now. And I would say I predominantly touch a lot of other people's music just for practice and skill. But at the same time, I write pretty frequently. I'm sure you could tell I was a guitarist just from the hair, forget the guitars in the background. But I
would never make that judgment.
You're on the very few wouldn't. I've had people stop me, hey, guitar man, right? And I'm like, yeah, actually, yeah. Fair guess.
So I find that really interesting with the variety of strings that you play. I decided in my 30s, I thought I wanted to play an instrument. And for some reason, I really love the sound of the mandolin. So I thought, what a great instrument to learn. Wow. What an overachiever. And by the way, did not achieve. So I actually did take lessons for a while. It was really hard. Mandolins are hard. Have you ever played a mandolin?
It's one of those things that I don't like to say I can play it, because like say ukulele or any of those, I just more so goof around. But when you have an understanding of some of the music theory in a fretted string instrument, it's a fairly easy jump. Yeah, like I picked up a mandolin a couple times, and I've always picked them up, and I kind of just start picking out things that I know, and then people go, wow, you can play mandolin? Well, no. And they go, well, then what's that? And I guess I'm playing mandolin. Yeah, right. So I would say no, but the average person would probably say yes.
Yeah, just because you can pick it up and do it. Well, and I guess you can, so you have a guitar, do you have a banjo and a bass, and do you have a wide array? And other people in your family play also, Denver?
So I have drums, banjo, bass, guitars. I think I have 11 guitars now.
Wow.
I'm a little addicted. And as for other people that play, I think my great aunt played piano or something, and my older brother plays guitar, but kind of stopped in his early 20s. He's about 30 now, but he plays occasionally, but doesn't like playing with me. Younger brother follows. Gross. I don't want to do that.
Are you the youngest of all of your siblings?
I'm the third. There's one who's 18 months younger than me.
Okay, so that's a fair number of boys growing up in a home, and
Sure is.
Yeah. And do you find? I mean, I have one brother, and we are so different from each other. You would never guess in a million years. We don't look alike. Our interests are very different, our personalities are very different. Do you feel like you mesh in, or are more like one? Do you think if I met all of your brothers not knowing they were your brothers, would I be like, oh, wait a minute, I think I know somebody like you and his name is Denver? Would I know? Or do you think you're all quite different?
We That's a weird one, because some people tell us, you are so obviously brothers, and some people don't see it at all.
Hmm.
And I think it's the context that you see us in.
Right.
Like, my oldest brother is a stonemason. He lives up in the Muskokas. My second oldest brother is he's in the Navy, but right now he's out in, not Wisconsin, Winnipeg. Because his wife is an MP, so they stationed him there, but they plan to go back to Newfoundland. I myself have been in science and then now the MSU, and my younger brother's really interested in history and military, specifically more like a historian end. So like we're all very different people,
Wow, fascinating.
but we definitely have, like I said, it just depends the context, because I've had times that people have picked up right away. They go, oh, you guys are brothers, that don't know. And then but when you put it that way, I go, we're so different, I don't see how people see it, right?
Yeah, fascinating. I think that is really interesting, isn't it? How differently our paths will take us. Are you the only one who's attended McMaster?
Yeah.
What was it about McMaster when you had the opportunity to choose a university that you were intrigued or interested in? Why Mac?
So I was actually looking at Laurentian. Kind of glad I didn't go there now.
Yeah.
Feel so bad for them.
Tough times. Yeah.
I was also looking at York. I think I applied to a couple other schools, like the one south of us. Starts with the W.
Wilfrid Laurier? Waterloo?
No, it's Western.
Western.
The other W, yeah. And just didn't really appeal to me. I'm more shotgun approach on my applications. Laurentian was nice, but it was just so cold on the campus tour. It was like -30 and they had to stand on the top of a building. York, I really loved folks there in the vibe, but just there was kind of something missing about the campus.
Mm-hmm.
And then Mac kind of had it all. Like Mac's about 30,000-ish, 40,000 students and staff on campus. I'm from Orillia, Ontario, which is 30,000 people. So it felt like home. Folks were friendly. I went to meet at Mac and I got lost with my cousin, and my dad had gone with me that day. And then just a random girl noticed, said, hey, you seem lost. Can I help? Right? And I went, yeah, actually. And she guided us like right across campus. I think it was from Arts Quad to like, I think like the engineering buildings or psych building or something way over on that end. And then I went, so what got you into campus tours and stuff? Because I assumed she was, somebody helping out with me at Mac. So I went, no, I'm just a student. And for me, that was what sold it. Like I'm so used to that small town vibe, and that's just my personality. Is just having somebody that would just go to their way to help a stranger.
Yeah.
Yeah. As well as like, Mac's a great school. I think 69th in the world right now, good rankings, like all that stuff, right? Like aside, it was the culture.
Yeah, well, they say that it's how it makes you feel. And that's the same with people. So it's a place or a people or a person or an interaction with people. How it makes you feel is what you really remember. And I think that's great. And it is one of the reasons why institutions are often trying to get people to the campus, because there are really strong community campus cultures that make a huge difference in intriguing and selling the space, the people, the programs, everything. It's that how it makes you feel. I had something, it's funny you say that about someone dragging you across, or not dragging, leading you across campus. I had the same thing when I joined. Every time you join a new large geographic footprint organization, trying to figure out how to find your way around is a bit daunting. And I similarly found many times if I asked somebody where something was, they actually would take me to it. I have a lot of wonderful colleagues who would do the same thing. I found some of my staff were, running me here and there and everywhere in the first little while, but whether it was a student or a staff member, if I needed help finding something, people would usually take you, which I found fascinating as well. That's a really interesting giving experience. So I can see why that really intrigued you and won your heart, Denver, to
Yeah.
be part of this.
Yeah. Yeah, her name was Mary, actually.
Oh, that's nice. I like that
Yeah.
a lot. That's great. Did you ever meet Mary again? Was that something that, did you see her on campus or recognize her at all after?
I think she actually, I think we spoke a little bit. She, I believe, graduated that summer. She was just taking a couple courses and then graduating. So unfortunately, not really.
Yeah, I was trying to build a story. You became best friends or ended up working together, you know, one of those stories. Okay,
Yeah.
that's all right. You're off the hook on that one. So we only have a few more minutes before I know you're an extremely busy person. What are you doing this summer for fun? I know you're going to be in a ton of meetings because you're working and preparing for the fall semester. I know. Have you picked one or two things that you're absolutely committed to doing this summer for yourself?
So I actually, I picked up a piece of junk '03 Honda Civic. Gonna do a little bit of work on that this summer, just because my grandfather is a mechanic, like a heavy machinery mechanic, and my dad has built a number of old Ford trucks and cars over the years. So just something I was interested in and thought, oh, I'll take a stab at this summer. And my cousin and I actually, like COVID permitting, we're trying to figure it out, but we're hoping to get a band going together this summer. So come into the fall that we can have, assuming we're allowed to, it'd be nice to do some live venue stuff.
Excellent.
So
that sounds great.
That's about it for my summer. What about your summer? Sorry, you've asked a lot of questions about me.
Yeah, I like that. I like being in the asking seat. I've booked a cottage for the end of July, and so I have two stepchildren who are in their early 20s. They're a little bit older, well, maybe around your age, 24 and 26. And so we will all head up to a cottage in the South Muskoka area and hang out for a week, which I am also hoping will happen because, you know, the world is an unknown thing. I was supposed to actually go to Quebec this weekend for 2 weeks and work from a friend's place near Quebec City just for a change of scene. And of course, that's been totally kibosh now because of our lockdown, which is, you know, it is what it is, not the end of the world. But yeah, so hoping in the summer that will happen. Other than that, you know, I don't know, Denver. It's hard to even know what to do. You know, like everybody else, I'll probably be outside walking around a little bit. And I love going to the beach, but I don't like a lot of people. So if I go to the beach, it has to be early in the morning before everybody else gets there. That's my beach visits are usually early visits. Yeah.
I've always been a late beach goer because the water's still warm.
Yeah.
Yeah, the water and the sand and everything's still warm. And if you go just after sunset, it's still nice, but nobody's there.
Yeah, that's nice too. Yeah, and you're right. And just being near water is just a joy, isn't it? I love it. Yeah, super. Well, I'm sure there are so many more things we can talk about. This has been super interesting. I just sucked all sorts of great information away from you. And thank you for being so willing to meet with me and share a little bit of your personal life as well as your work life. And what I'm really pleased about, Denver, is you and I will get a chance to spend lots of time together. We tend to be in a lot of the same meetings already. And it's been great meeting you. I really enjoy our time when we do get a chance to talk. So thank you.
Heck, my pleasure. And I'm excited for hopefully this fall we'll get to actually have some hallway chats in a hallway.
Let's make sure that happens. Let's do that, even if it's standing 6 feet apart. Okay.
Yeah. Well, that's the beauty of I think coming up in the future here. There's an end, right? I think that's what at least I'm telling myself that. But it looks really nice in that sense. It might not be August, it might not be September, it might not be October, right? But there's an end, hopefully in this calendar year, right?
I think let's stay optimistic like that. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So I appreciate this and thank you for the opportunity to let me talk and listen to me ramble. I love to talk. So
I love it. It's been really, really great. Thanks again.